As we know, the birth ground of diseases is wet litter. So this is the part where we need to manage our litter. So when it comes to litter management, let's pay close attention to this because this is very important. Because what we want in our poultry is to have low disease rates. So what we do is this. When you are making up a budget, what I can say, among these other investments, please pay attention to your litter management. Some use sawdust, some use shavings, but I'll go with those who use shavings because shavings are good for chicks, even for big birds. So when it comes to shavings, shavings are good, but the main important fact that I want to mention in this video is how can you stop wet litter? And as we know, if you stop wet litter, you are decreasing the rate of diseases in your poultry. Sometimes even zero rate in your poultry. So, when it comes to managing your litter system, especially with the shavings, you need a good thickness on those parts. So when it comes to investing, there's some poultry farmers who are investing less where they're supposed to invest huge. For you to avoid diseases, because we know diseases, when the outbreak comes, it affects a lot. One, it affects the appetite of the birds. Two, the health of the birds. Three, it also affects the growth of the birds, which we don't need, which means if we have birds which are sick, which is because of the litter system, we didn't invest a lot there. That's a challenge that we need to deal with. So what I want to say here is, on this video, there is a part where I'll show you there's a natural behavior that these birds have, which they prey around in the shavings, or I can say in the litter. So what I'm trying to do here and what I'm trying to say is I'm encouraging poultry farmers to invest a lot in your shavings, because I've seen there's some budgets going on social media and people are giving a small amount on investment of sawdust, which a lot of people think is sawdust. Of course, we all mention to say sawdust. Even me, sometimes I say sawdust. But the fact is that there are shavings. Because sawdust, when we use sawdust, we have a risk on our birds to start having a chronic respiratory disease, because when the birds start preying around on those sawdust, because they are so dusty, so those the dusty starts moving around, which means the hair become polluted with that same dust of the sawdust, and sometimes it also dirties our water, which is not good. So increase on the investment on your litter, because that means you will decrease the rate of diseases. Because if you have a small thickness of shavings on your poultry, it will get wet very fast, and when it gets wet, that's another budget for you to start making. And when you, before you even think of making the budget, the birds are already affected, because we don't need the litter to be wet. You don't need it to be wet to avoid diseases. So let me just show you how I've managed to do with the litter, the amount of the thickness that I have, which will drag me until the time I will sell. This litter you are seeing here, it will drag me until the time I'll sell my birds. So the thickness for broilers, we don't need a lot of thickness. We just need maybe 3, 4, but I would even encourage to do 2 inches. It's okay, no problem. It will lead you until that time. So let's take a look at how I've managed to do with my litter and how much is the thickness, and I'll show you also the natural behavior of what the birds are doing with the litter, which will also encourage you to use at least a good amount of litter in your poultry. So let's take a look so that we don't get discouraged with what people are saying. You know, when we do budgeting, we are settled with that budgeting. So the budgeting they are giving out, double it or triple it to make sure your birds are staying in a healthy environment. So let's take a look. We see exactly how my poultry is. Let's do it right now. So this is what happens. The birds are they naturally prey in these shavings. So if you look at these birds here, they are playing in the shavings, which is a natural habit. So that means the moment they are doing that, the shavings are turning around. If we go again and look at the other side again, these birds here, these you are seeing here, they are playing again in the shavings. So the moment they are playing, they are rotating those. And if they are wet and if the thickness is low, let me just touch one of these. You see, when we go here, when we look, oh, let me just start afresh. If you look here, when we just do this, you can simply tell this is thick. This thickness is good enough. Look, the thickness is good enough for the birds to prey around. So what I can say, for you to save yourself from diseases, invest more on your shavings. I had to put these shavings, I can say maybe 2 weeks ago. But if you look, see, they are very, very dry. These are very dry. Why? Because when the birds rotate them, they'll go and dry up. Why? Because I invested a lot. So if you want to keep your birds healthy so that you don't change litter all the time, look, they are playing there. You see? Now if it's less, they will get wet. They get wet very fast. So invest. That budget has really bothered me because it's less and it will attract more diseases. Let's see here. Let's see. See, this is thick enough for the birds to prey around. So what we do is, the only part where you change your shavings when you put a lot of shavings is the part which is here where the birds drink water from, because they always drop water here. This is the place which gets wet real fast. But as in for me, you see, because of the thickness which is good enough, this part is not really that mess up. For 2 weeks it has been like this. See, so even within maybe another 2 weeks or 3, the shavings will still be dry. But if you put just a little bit of the shavings, I'm telling you, you will again go and buy shavings because they'll get wet. What we don't need is to increase the labor of working with the shavings, because when you put a small thickness or maybe a low amount of shavings, your birds can't play like this because they'll get wet very fast. The shavings will get wet. So the only way to stop wet litter is to put, at least what I can say is maybe 4, but the normal one that if is for layers, that's when we can put 6 inches. But with broilers we can put about 4, 3 at least. That way we are able to, we are settled to say who have these beds with this type of shavings until sell time. So these are my shavings. If you see, this thickness is good enough. So make sure the thickness of your shavings is enough. Your birds are able to prey there and it will always be dry. Don't be deceived with the budgetings of saying sawdust 150, sawdust 130. No, come on, man. This is where you need to invest a lot of money in, on your shavings. So guys, as I've told you, these birds, for you to have good healthy chickens, you need to have a good litter management. The thickness needs to be good enough so that your birds are able to enjoy like these ones. So thank you guys, as always, a happy farmer. Thank you and bye bye.